Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Cultural Awareness, the podcast that allows you to travel across the world. All of this from the backseat of your car, the comfort of your home, or maybe your neighbor house. Who knows? Wherever you are, welcome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'm your host, Big Steph. Alright. Okay, right, guys. Welcome again to another edition of Cultural Awareness, right? The podcast. A lot of people been asking, where have you been for a while? You know, I've been actually out here doing my thing, trying to find a job, but then it got me started thinking, right? When you're trying to find a job, trying to find something to do that you're good at, because obviously I want to get into real estate, and I talk about it many times before on this podcast show. So I was like thinking, right? And then I started realizing that I could take this thing culturally and maybe go a little further with it on this podcast episode. So why is it that most people tend to look for a job instead of creating their own business? And I realized that Africans do it naturally, where they start going to school and thinking that by going to school they will get to find a job. They do it naturally by colonialization, right? We've been colonized and we adopted the Western studies. I'm not trying to accuse anybody. We adopted the Western study that says that when you go to school, you know, you do well in school, and after school you find a good job. But the reality is that isn't necessarily true. And then when we bring it back here to America, you will realize that most people have been conditioned to do the same thing. You go to school, you get a good education, and then from there you find a job. What is the theme? What is the current theme? Is finding a job. Well, I've been looking into it, like, you know, finding a job and everything like that. And I realized that, yes, you can find a job for a little time, right? You can find a job for a small period of time. Like maybe you need, like, for example, I almost thought about writing my own book about real estate, right? Because I did all this time when I wasn't making a podcast episode, I was actually reading, which is shocking because I never read, right? I mean, I'm even shocked myself. I actually never read, right? Because I like to learn by listening. Like I usually like to go on YouTube and watch content that I think I will benefit from. Like I will go look on real estate investing and see how other people that have invested, how they talk about it and everything. But the reality, you also need to read. All of them talk about reading material that pertain to the subject that you want to do. And me, since I wanted to do in real estate, they recommended a book, which I started reading. There's actually two books. There's one called the 21st century businessman, which is by Robert Kiyosaki, and then obviously his other book that I always wanted to read since I was in college, which is called Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? So those are the two books that I will also recommend to people to kind of see and learn about money versus learning about jobs, right? So in Rich Dad Poor Dad, he talks a lot about, actually no, in 21st century, but he talks a lot about like the quadrant and things like that, you know, the 4 quadrant, how people want to build income instead of building asset. That is a little bit, I'm kind of paraphrasing, right? But he said that he take that example of the cow, where some people will buy a cow and maybe feed it and then try to sell it for more money. But he said that is actually the wrong thing to do. The idea is actually to buy a cow and sell the milk. And the money that you make from selling the milk, you will actually put it together to buy another cow. Now, instead of one cow, you have 2 cows producing again, same milk. and so on and so on. You are not building income, you're building asset. Because when you buy a car and you keep it for a while, you groom it and everything, and then you sell it, you only made what? Income. You didn't make any asset. So the next day that income will run out eventually, and then you won't have nothing. But when you have many assets, let's say you have many cows together and you keep selling the milk, you're building wealth. You see? So I was like, oh wow, this is interesting. So the best thing is actually to start your own business. And because I realized that the best thing to start your own business, so I've been trying to start my own business, It's not there where it needs to be yet, because I'm actually learning more about it. You can't just wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to have a business. A business of what? That's not how it actually works. You have to read. You have to make research. You have to find what else is out there that might pay well. And then this idea of, we've been programmed started getting into my head, and I realized, obviously this is cultural awareness. We like to talk about what goes on in one culture versus the other culture. And I realized us African and American, or whether European, we've been really, really programmed to really, really go to school for a job. But the reality check, which this is what I find crazy, and the reality check is most people that are millionaire, most people that are wealthy, I didn't say rich with income, wealthy, they have wealth. Number one that I realized in my research is they don't have one source, one stream of income. They have many streams of income, right? They get income from this thing or that thing, and it's when they put it all together that make them wealthy. Same thing, African, American, European, or sometimes Asian, not all Asian, because Asia is really big on being an entrepreneur and things like that. So, but for the other three continents, I realized we literally, obviously because African acquired their most of their how can I say, education from Western things. We've been colonized, right? So we tend to think that by going to school, getting a degree, we will get a job after. The reality is not true. Trust me, I have a degree and I've been looking for a job ever, and I didn't find any, right? Not that I didn't find any. I find some couple, but the pay rate, at that pay rate, you will never be somebody, right? You will always have, it's made to keep you working for somebody instead of working for your own. So then I was like, yeah, thank God, I had a little bit of saving that I'm using right now. But, you also have to learn how to live beneath your needs, right? So that you can keep this saving and have time to start your own business. And I'm not telling you not to work, because for what I was able to learn, you need to work at least for 2 years before you decide to start your business. You need to work at least for 2 years. How? Let's take something like real estate investing, right? So that's why I thought I could write a book because I did so much research. So let's take something like real estate investing. The number one thing that you need when you're trying to invest in real estate, because when you want to buy that first property, the number one thing that you need is actually to show 2 years of income tax. And to get those 2 years of income tax, what has to happen? You have to work somewhere, right? So I look around, and a lot of these people telling you how you can invest using other people's money. Trust me, when you say that thing out loud, doesn't it sound silly? I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but I think it practically doesn't exist, investing using other people's money in real estate. Why? Because why wouldn't those people just go ahead and do it themselves? That is the question. Why wouldn't they just go ahead and be like, hey, if you can do this with my money, I would just go ahead and do it for myself and actually become even more wealthy. So the reality is, if you want to start at the beginning, and please stay with me here, because we are everything that I'm doing now, I will come here and share my experiences. So the first thing on my research that I realized was what? You have to work for at least 2 years. Why? Because you need to show 2 years of proof of income, right? And income tax. That is number one. Number two, you have to actually build your credit score, because nobody is going to lend you money if you have a shitty or weak credit score. Your credit score needs to be at least minimum 720 plus, right? Why? Because of the rate. You want the lowest rate that when you're paying for your property, right? You don't want, like, no one is going to kind of lend you money if they don't believe that you will be able to pay back. So you have to have somehow a good credit score, proof of income. And those two then start following each other, right? That is what takes you to, like, going to get pre-qualified and things like that. And also one thing you got to know is you got to learn how to be pre-qualified by many banks. Don't just have one bank that qualify you and you think you're okay, because there are some last minute things that might happen that you were not aware of. So I'm not trying to teach a real estate course here, okay? I'm just trying to let you know that in order for you to even start in real estate, you have to take certain steps, and that will push you to work first for somebody. So there are some people that do it right away, and because they've been working, that is easy for them to get into, because if you have a good credit score and you have proof of income and you have good how can I call it, good income taxes, or you can show your taxes, then that should just move you further along than somebody that is just starting, right? So my point of this podcast episode is to show that it's now we are living in the 21st century and everybody wants to start their business. So start your own business, man. When you become an owner, you have a lot more flexibility than when you're working for somebody first time, right? I'm not saying that it's going to be easy to start a business, but I'm telling you that it becomes easier once your business is already established. That is the only way for you to become wealthy, when you can create a process and scaling it and making other people doing the job for you. Haven't you realized that all bosses, not all bosses, most bosses come to work in t-shirt, while the people that work for them come to work with suit and tie? Why is that? Because when you're the boss, you make the rules, right? The rules that you make don't necessarily apply to you, apply to the people working for you. You will realize that in a business environment, most of the time they will require you to wear a suit and a vest and, nice shoes or whatever, when in fact the person owning the business comes to work in t-shirts. So the goal is to work in t-shirt, not to work in suit and tie. Put that in mind, right? So another thing is, I went around and looked on people that have been successful, right? None of them really actually work for anybody. Everybody that you ask, the Mark Zuckerberg, the Bill Gates, who can I say, Jeff Bezos, like, they all have businesses. None of them work for somebody else. People work for them. What does that teach you? The mentality of ownership. Once you become an owner, you have more flexibility. So, and I realized us in Africa, we're still doing that mistake. Right now, the new generation is changing, right? The new generation is like, hey, I want to own this business, because they realize that, hey, Africa has a lot of resources, right? Whether it's in greens or mineral or whatever, like, there's Africa is literally haven't really tapped its full potential, right? Because not only they have the resources, they just don't have the means to exploit those resources. And the new generation is starting to think like entrepreneur, because they realize, like, hey, there's a lot of people that have PhD with no jobs. Like, so for years and centuries, we've been training to, like, getting a good job, but it's no longer the case. Because why? Population rises. When there's more people around, well, the resources become scarce, right? And in this case, these resources are jobs. Jobs become scarce. And when jobs are scarce, like, you take the Eli of the Eli. Well, not everybody was good in school. Like, I mean, I graduated from college, but I wouldn't say that I was good in school. Hopefully, some of my people don't hear this, but I don't think I was necessarily that good in school, So First of all, I hated reading, and I'm shocked that right now I'm reading like my life depends on it, because I realized like, hey, most people that, you have to learn from other people's mistake, and all other people, how can I say, other people, not false, but what other people have done to be successful, right? So, and I realized that all of them talk about reading books that pertain to what you want to do. And right now, I'm reading books. Like, I'm shocked to even, I keep saying it, but that's because it's shocking to me. I was never a reader, right? But I realized like books actually have some knowledge that we might need to be successful. Another thing when it comes to being successful, right? One thing I was able to see is you can also read all the books in the world you have, because don't trust me, there are lots of people that work in jobs that have knowledge and yet they don't take action. So you also have to realize that in order to be successful, you cannot just read books. You have to read and take action. Action is actually the one that I will say makes you become successful, right? That takes you to success is action, because I can read about real estate all I want, like I'm doing right now, but until I take that action, I will never be successful, because it's just knowledge. It's not action. So my point is, when you read and everything and you feel comfortable enough that, hey, I can take this next step, hey, take a leap of faith and get in there, because even if you fail, you didn't fail. You just learn, right? You learn something, and that will give you idea of what other businesses to start. Because some people sometimes stumble on a business because they fail at one business and they realize like, hey, why didn't I just take this one? And they change the business structure, and that is what actually opened the gateway for them to become successful. So same thing, you have to take action in everything you do. And this being cultural awareness, I will go ahead and give you a quote of the day before we continue, right? A quote of the day, because we're coming almost to an end. And again, guys, sorry for those, because I receive a lot of comment like, why haven't you post any episode? Now I know for a fact now that I'm being followed. And if you are not following me yet, this is your first time, please go ahead and subscribe to my podcast. I'm on every single platform, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Google, how do you call it? YouTube. You can even listen to it on YouTube. You can listen to it. I mean, I'm not making video yet, which is coming soon. You can follow me everywhere. And that being said, quote of the day.
Yo, boss, where is the commercial?
We ain't got none. We got to work harder.
Alright, so for this morning quote of the day, we want to keep it in the same mentality of business. So this quote comes from Africa, and it says this: if you do not have patience, you cannot make beer or wine. If you do not have patience, you cannot make beer or wine. Why do they say that? It's because it takes time for fermentation. It takes time to make beer, right? And you can't just be in a hurry. Then it won't come out good. Because you know how they say age like wine. You know what I mean? Because it takes time. My point is, it takes time to build a business. It takes time to get from where you are to where you want to be. So go ahead and know that it's a grind. And I don't care how old you are. Even if you are 50, 60 years old, there's still time to start a business and be successful before you leave this earth. So before you leave this earth, think about making your footprint. Think about leaving your mark, so that people will know that you were somebody that never gave up. So that was the point of my podcast this morning. And now, trust me, I'm no longer missing podcasts, because I know I'm being followed, and I know that there are some people relying on my podcast out there for motivation, whether it's when you are riding in your car in the morning for work, or you just want somebody that inspire. That's what I'm here for. I will talk again as culture, but the goal of the podcast is not just culture, it's to motivate you. It's actually to get you to take action, because I realized that, hey, everybody that take action becomes successful. Whether it's through failure, you become successful. Whether you just right away to success, hey, lucky you. But my point is, don't be so programmed to think that by going to school and everything, that is how you will become successful by getting a job, because the reality is, as long as you're working for somebody, you won't really be successful the way you want to be. You have to work for somebody just at the beginning, but then you have to have this notion of actually starting your own business if you want to be really, really, I'm not going to say rich, wait for it, I'm going to say wealthy. If you want to be really wealthy, you have to have your own business, because I realized everybody that have their own business becomes successful. And that being said, go ahead and check out the book by Robert Kiyosaki. And if I mess around, I might write a book myself, because I've been reading so much, I'm even shocked. So if I mess around, I might write my own book. And that will be it for this. Don't forget again to check out Taste of Cameroon in Plano area. You can call them at 818-814-0978. So go ahead. They are located in Plano. They make really good African food. That's why I'm recommending them. And that will be it for today. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for listening to me. May God bless you. May God give you strength and wealth, prosperity, and may God guide you throughout your day so you can achieve what you want to achieve. That being said, peace and God bless. Big Steph.